Okay, so the last myth that we're going to be looking at in this unit is about the god Soma. Now, Soma, like Agni, is not just a god, but also a physical substance as well. In his case, he's the plant Soma, and also the drink that's made from it, which is known as Soma Bhavamana, the purified Soma. Soma, as both the plant and the god, plays a major role in the Rig Veda. The entire ninth book of the Rig Veda, in fact, is totally dedicated just to Soma, and all the hymns in the book involve, in one way or another, the Soma sacrifice. We already talked about what Soma could be, right? Whether it was a Phaedra or magic mushrooms or whatever. There's no way to know for sure, of course, since ultimately, whatever it was, it got lost by the time of the late Vedic period, by the time 1000 BC rolled around. But no matter what it was, we do know pretty well about how the drink would have been prepared. First, the stalks of the Soma plant are crushed with stones, and then this juice is then passed through a filter that's made out of sheep's wool. Then that filtered juice is mixed with water and then milk to form the final drink that you drink. Here's how the Rig Veda describes the process in hymn 917. Like rivers along a downward slope, smashing obstacles, turbulent, the swift Soma juices have been sent surging. As they're pressed, the drops, the Soma juices, like rains to the earth, have flowed to Indra. The exhilarating drink of exhilaration, the Soma, rushes into the filter beyond the waves, smashing aside the demons seeking the gods. He runs into the tubs, he's poured around the filter, he grows strong through the hymns at the sacrifices. So you can see this kind of rushing effect that Soma would have had, embodied kind of figuratively in the descriptions of how it rushes through the filters into the tubs and the vats where it gets purified. Now, what kind of effects would Soma have had on the people who are drinking it? Again, we can turn to the Rig Veda where we find this brilliant description. By my great power, I have surmounted heaven and the great earth. Have I drunk the Soma? Yes. Actually, the whole hymn 10.119 is filled with a repetitive formula of this kind. It's a brilliant verse, showing clearly the kinds of euphoric or energizing, stimulating effects that the drink would have had. Check it out. I think it's one of my favorites, actually. Like Agni, Soma is around all over the Rig Veda, but there aren't a lot of myths that specifically are about him as a god. One important myth that I like to look at is how Soma was stolen from heaven and brought down to earth. The story actually is pretty simple. Soma is held captive in a towering citadel in the high reaches of heaven, and he's being held captive there by a demon archer named Krushanu. A falcon is sent up to heaven and steals the Soma from the tower. Krushanu then shoots at the bird, who loses a single feather from the attack. The falcon delivers the Soma to Manu, who's the first human sacrificer, and then the Soma is ritually prepared for Indra to enjoy. So still not about the god, but about the drink in some ways. Let's see how the story appears, though, in fragmentary form in back-to-back hymns in the Rig Veda at 426 and 427. It starts in the voice of Indra, who's bragging about all the awesome things he's done. I became Manu and the sun, he says. I am Kakshivant, the inspired seer. I steered myself down to Kutsa, the son of Arjuna. I am Kavi Ushana. Look at me. I gave land to the Arya. I gave rain to the pious mortal. I led the bellowing waters. It's my will that the gods follow. In my exhilaration, I broke apart all at once the 99 fortresses of Shambhara, and then the 100th, his dwelling place, to complete it, when I helped Divodasa Atitigva. Again, this is Indra talking, and these are all kind of obscure references to other mythic feats that he had pulled off. It's kind of like the rap, I guess. Anyhow, the poet goes on now to talk about the falcon and the Soma. Let that bird stand out from all other birds, O Maruts. that swiftly flying falcon from all other falcons. Because that fine feathered one, with his independent power, that needed no chariot wheel, brought to Manu that oblation that is pleasing to the gods. The poet's here now praising the falcon for being the best falcon there is, for doing something impossible, basically. He keeps going. When he brought it from there, quivering in fear, the bird, swift as thought, was sent surging along the wide path. He traveled swiftly with the Somian honey, and the falcon found fame here. Flying straight, the falcon, that bird, hanging on to the plant, brought from afar the gladdening, exhilarating drink, the Soma, holding it firmly, having the gods on his side, having taken it from yonder high heaven. At the end now, the poet sums up the whole point of the hymn. Plenitude left behind the hostilities then, just as in the exhilaration of Soma, the non-fool leaves behind the fools. This is a kind of cryptic statement to close out the hymn, but I think it can mean something like maybe let bygones be bygones. I don't know. Like the idea is like now that we have the Soma, now that there's plenitude, we got plenty of it, we don't need to make any more hostilities with those people that we captured it from. In any case, the story continues on in the next hymn, 427, where Soma himself now talks and explains his side of the story. Even though, still in the womb, I knew all their births through and through, those of the gods, but 100 metal fortifications guarded me. Then the falcon, and I swiftly flew away. He certainly did not carry me away against my will, for I was superior to him in energy and valor. Plenitude left behind the hostilities, which were just standing still, and the falcon, swelling in strength, overtook the winds. There again we have that same kind of cryptic sentence. Plenitude left behind the hostilities. What does that sentence mean, right? It's kind of strange, isn't it? I wonder what it was supposed to mean even for them back then. Maybe we'll take a look at the Sanskrit original and see if we can try to dissect what's happening in class. Anyway, let's get back to the story. When the falcon roared down from heaven, when or if they carried plenitude away from there, when the archer Krishanu, alert in mind, released and let fly his bowstring down towards him. Flying straight, the falcon brought him to the companions of Indra from the lofty back of heaven, just as the Ashvins had brought Bujyu home with their birds. A feather of the winged one of the bird, launched then on its course, flew between heaven and earth. Now the glistening tub anointed with cow's milk, the swelling glistening stalk, the foremost of the honeyed drink held out by the Advaryus. Bounteous Indra will aim it for drinking. The champion will aim it for drinking to exhilaration. So there you go. Soma in his own words, I suppose. So hopefully as we come to kind of the end of our little foray into the very complicated world of Vedic mythology, we can appreciate a little bit more some of the takeaway features maybe of this kind of obscure ancient tradition. There was a certain sense of social identity based on loyalty and service to the gods, especially Indra, who in his sort of masculine, powerful role as the protector, would harness the powers of Soma to defeat his enemies and ensure our prosperity. Agni and Soma were substantive representations of that power. Agni was a consumer of the offerings. He was a workhorse messenger to the gods. Soma was the powerful drink itself, which Indra needed to drink to get his inspiration and his energy. Even though the mythology of the Rig Veda is ultimately just super obscure and hard to understand, one thing is totally clear, I would say. It was intimately tied to the performance of Vedic ritual, there's a connection between myth and ritual, and it's found in all traditions around the world, not just Vedic tradition. And it's something that scholars have found to be an important part of world culture. Myths create a charter for rituals that we do, not just in solemn situations like in religious practice, but like in every part of our lives. Rituals, which are repeated, habitualized actions, they help make myths true. They give meaning and value to the stories that we're told, and over the course of time come to embed those stories into the very fabric of who we consider ourselves to be. That's exactly what had happened in the Vedic period so many thousands of years ago in India. And in our next session, to kind of get a better sense of the importance of ritual, we'll now turn to the classical ritual culture of the Vedas. So we'll see you next time.